All right. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Really hope you have enjoyed some of what we've been putting out here over the past few weeks. A little mix of some informational stuff I've been doing and some collaborations I've been doing with other folks, along with our normal sort of scope of helping you all strengthen your true purpose in life. Last week had a really cool conversation with Michael DeLuca, who grew up around the Apollo space program. Actually, a lot of really great stuff in there. Some really good life lessons that he learned from growing up around some of those incredible people that were at the forefront of that technology, and how he's applied some of those things to his life and to business and health and all those great things. So go check that out if you have not. And today we're going to keep rolling on with some of this sort of inspirational and really good health, wellness, and mindset stuff that we've been having on the podcast here recently. I'm going to be joined today by Brian Ligotti of Dirigo Fitness in Falmouth, Maine. Brian started Dirigo Fitness because he had struggled with weight for many years of his life. He knew he needed to do something to help others overcome the despair that he felt regarding his weight. After receiving a degree in exercise physiology from the University of Southern Maine, he applied what he learned in school to Dirigo Fitness with these following principles. The only way to create lasting change is to stay focused, have a clear reason for what I am doing, and be consistent with small changes. Fitness allowed Brian to find the piece of himself that could face anything and push through discomfort. He was never really comfortable in his own skin and decided he didn't want anyone else to live with that feeling of hopelessness. And there's a lot more incredible and inspiring stuff in there. But Brian, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Phil.
Of course. Yeah. So as I said, there's some other really good, inspiring stuff in there, and having known you for a while, known about Dirigo and what you do over there for a little while, wanted to bring you on and have you share some of that with the listeners here, along with some awesome news that you guys have coming up here just this week. But before we get to all of that, love for you to just introduce yourself a little more than we already have here. Talk about a little bit of your journey, what got you to the point you're at now, and what Dirigo Fitness is all about.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I was definitely overweight for a good portion of my life. The majority of my youth was spent like overweight. When I was in high school, I think I was at like 265 when I was a freshman, which like being overweight in high school is like less than awesome. Those weren't very fun years, right?
It's not fun.
I didn't actually start getting fit until I was in my like mid-ish 20s. And it's funny because when people see me now, they just assume that I've always been this way or like really into sports, which is not the case at all.
Wow.
So I have still some of the pictures to prove it, like my freshman ID. I don't know if you've ever seen like The Sopranos, but I looked exactly like Anthony Jr. when he was also at his heaviest, like with a little mushroom cut and everything.
Yeah.
So that's basically what my freshman ID looked like, actually. Face so big that it took up the entire square of the picture. Yeah.
Quite a transformation you've gone through there.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was one of those like slow and steady and gradual ones. But the thing that did it for me actually was, I don't know if you know who Jack LaLanne is.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Don't know a ton about him, but definitely.
So Jack LaLanne, he basically was the guy that made working out cool.
Yes.
And he did that back in the 50s, and he has a little jumpsuit and he'd work out with his wife, and it was really cool. He also, in I think it was like 2 hours or 3 or something, he managed to do like 1,000 pull-ups and 100 push-ups.
Oh yes, I do recall that now that you say that. Yeah.
And then at like 76, he swam from Alcatraz to San Francisco, towing 3 rowboats behind him. Like he was harnessed up to him, and then swam in that choppy water at like that old. Anyways.
Wow.
He died back in like, I think 2006 or 7 or no. It had to have been like, maybe it was 2010 or around there. Anyways, he died.
Sure.
Dead on it, but that doesn't matter. But I remember hearing on the news that, he worked out for 2 hours a day, not because he actually liked to work out, because he did that because he had to,
Mm,
because he grew up kind of as a sick kid, and that's just what he had to do to take care of his body.
wow.
And like when I heard that, and he did that up until a week before he died. He passed away of pneumonia
Wow.
at 93 or something. He was like super old.
Yeah.
Lived a long life. And I remember hearing that, and the news reporter saying that, and I was like, I gotta get my act together here. Like,
Yeah.
this old guy's like getting it done, and I am young, and I'm blowing it, man. Like,
Mm,
I have so many more years left than this guy, and he's like doing all that he can to maintain his body, and I'm like doing nothing, right?
yeah.
Like,
Sure.
I'm slowly dying here on the couch.
Right.
And it was that like snap. I was like, oh
Mm,
man, something's got to change for me. And then slow and steady, like I started making changes. Like as I acquired more knowledge, it was, I was able to implement more changes in my life. But like,
mm,
so now like what I try to do at work here with people is to try to get them to find that spark, the
yeah.
thing that's like, that makes this important, like, because everyone has that thing that matters to them. It's just a matter of like finding the thread that leads back to a healthy body,
Sure.
because everyone intellectually everyone knows that your
Mm,
health is really important, but most people don't accept that idea until they're already sick,
right. Yeah.
right?
We take it for granted in a big way.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get that all the time. Like
Mm,
people come to you in your PT practice, and they habitually move in
mm,
ways that are not, let's say, productive or efficient.
sure.
They injure themselves, and then they cement movement patterns that are less than optimal,
Mm,
continue to injure themselves, and they don't recognize, or they take for granted the fact that they used to be able to tie their shoes
hmm.
without pain, and now they'd give anything to just
Yeah.
be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Right. And man, are we so quick to just be okay with that sometimes
Yeah.
without someone around you, like what you just said, saying, "Hey, wait a second, you know, this isn't normal, nor does it have to be.
Yeah.
Let's find not only what to do to get you out of this, but also let's find something that you truly value, that you want to work toward. I mean, not being
Yeah.
able to tie your shoes is certainly a huge pain in the butt, and
Yes.
and can be a little bit maybe even demoralizing for some people. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you could just get a pair of shoes that slides on, right? But there's
Mm-hmm.
got to be something in your life that you truly wish that you could do, that you're actually passionate about, that you no longer can do. What is that, and how can we get back to that?
Yeah. And, fitness and health don't have to be that dissimilar from
Mm,
your PT, if that
sure.
makes sense. Like, it's just a matter of like figuring out what is important to you, right?
Hmm.
What kind of life do you actually want to lead? And what kind of example do you want to set? Like parents, it's the
Mm,
easiest. That's the easiest thing to do, right? Is to start with that line of questioning, like
mm,
what kind of parent do you want to be, and what kind of example do you want to set? Because I know one thing, for me that I always think of, especially for parents, because now that I am one, but like I always think about like my mom.
mm.
'Cause she somehow, I don't know how she did this, because she raised three children all by herself,
Wow.
which I think is amazing, right? I
Incredible.
didn't, I kind of understood it as a kid, but now like I really get it because I'm a grown up, right? But anyways,
Sure.
I remember there were times where we'd all be so hungry that she used to make us dinner every night. Like she used to somehow make us a hot dinner, right? And it was
Mm,
always nutritious. It was always, the portions were always well, and she did her best she didn't realize it, but she did her best to educate us, right?
yeah.
And I remember there were times where like we'd all be so hungry and like basically jumping all over her for food, that she would cook dinner with her coat still on, because she didn't even have a chance to like
Wow.
get it off. And the funny thing is, now that I have kids of my own, and I think about phoning it in for
Yeah.
dinner, I think of my mom, right? And I think of the times that she was there with her coat on making us dinner, and I'm just like, come on, like how can I ever say I'm tired now? Like
Right.
how can I ever not show up for my kids the same way that my mom did?
Mm,
And I just want to, now that I'm a parent, I want to be able to give that to other parents,
Sure.
because I see sometimes people walk through my door and they genuinely have no idea. They have an idea of what it means to be healthy, but they don't actually know what it looks like to implement it in their lives.
Sure.
So the thing for me is like parents, especially, like trying to get them to a place where they know that they're instilling some really solid knowledge in their children,
Mm.
not laying like a burden on them of having no idea of what to do,
Yeah.
or setting the example that like, this is just what happens when you get older.
Right.
Like you get older, you get busy with work, and then you give up on life somehow and
Mm.
settle into a life that's less than fulfilling.
Mm.
Right. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if you're swallowing or ignoring the health cues in your life, I'd argue probably you're ignoring others. But that's like
Oh, sure.
my own thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And it's so interesting. And this is a bit of a theme that we've talked about before in some episodes here on the podcast, but it comes up over and over again. I find it so interesting that it's this way, and there's a reason it comes up over and over again. And that is that most of us, just like that example you gave, can figure out what that spark is, right? What that reasoning is that we need to be healthier, be a better or be the best version of ourselves. But sometimes people do need that that question or series of questions brought up to them to like have it really click, right? And then even more than that, they really need that guidance, right? Because obviously not everybody has the exercise physiology knowledge that you have, or the background in fitness or sports that other people that can help them with those things have. But beyond just needing someone to show them how to properly move and exercise or get out of pain or whatever the case might be, sometimes surprisingly enough, we do need someone else's help from time to time to figure out even what the spark is to take that first step.
Yes, agreed.
And then obviously the knowledge and accountability that comes with working with someone who can help you along that path is super important. But that kind of brings me to my next thought as I was thinking here is, you obviously went out and educated yourself on these things, as you mentioned, but where did you get help from along the way? Because I know that you shared with us how you kind of found that spark and that inspiration, but did you also get help to find even more of that spark than what you came up with on your own? Or was it more just getting some knowledge yourself, working with some people who knew more than you to kind of show you the way from a fitness perspective? What did that look like for you?
So for me, it looked like, and it still does, having coaches to write my programs and hold me accountable. Because one of the things I learned is like, I am the worst coach to myself. Right. Like I will definitely let things slide and not hold myself to the highest standard possible as far as the fitness thing goes.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically once I had the spark, I was like, okay, a change has to happen. I am willing to do anything and pay anything to make sure this thing happens. And at the time, like I was, I don't know, 25 and broke, but it didn't matter. So I walked into like a gym to see a trainer willing to pay like anything at that point. And I was going to figure out how. And then when I heard the rates, it was actually quite reasonable, because I started with I'll pay anything. And then when they told me the actual rates, that seemed reasonable.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been getting help basically all along the way. Help not just with the knowledge, but like with the implementation and the accountability part, right? Because that's usually where the rubber meets the road, is like the knowledge that we give people is not proprietary. Like we don't own any of it. You could Google any of the information we're going to give you. It's just like, are you going to do it? And I think that's, that's the thing that usually people need the most help with, is like, I know exactly what to do. I'm just straight up not doing it. Right. So like, how do I manage that? Or what do I do? And help, like you said, that's usually how it comes from us, is it's the form of accountability and troubleshooting and really taking a look at your life and seeing where small changes can be made
Mm,
so that, you know, you can stick with it longer than a week or a month or 6 weeks or whatever the hell it ends up being.
sure. Yeah. No, I think that's just really important to hear that, people who have found, or from the outside, people
Mhm,
perceive someone like yourself as someone who's found that success in
mhm,
that
mhm,
health, fitness, wellness realm. I think it's
mhm.
really important for people to hear and understand that all of those people continue to get coaching.
Oh yeah,
All of
yeah,
those
for
people
sure.
have to, they might be better than, if we want to do a comparison, they might be better than the average person at getting out of bed and going and doing it because they've
Yes.
found a true passion there. However, they're still not perfect. And all of those
Yep.
folks need to lean on each other in order to make that happen. And needing to do that is okay, because the people that the average person sees as already successful in that realm still
Yes.
need to do it. They don't do it because they value it. They do value it, but they also need it. And
Yes.
I think that's an important point to make as we're talking about this.
Yeah. And then, like you said, like there's no shame in needing the help
Mm,
implementing it. Truth be told, there are days where I wouldn't probably be doing a workout if I wasn't paying for it, just
right.
because that's how it is. And then, but the thing about that is one day turns into two, turns into three. Now you've got a new habit.
Right.
And that's where things can get tricky.
Mm,
It's also like, that's why I mentioned before, getting clear on why you're doing this is also helpful. So like, to a certain degree, I have to look a certain way to be successful, right? Because
sure.
no one wants to, I would have difficulty dispensing exercise or whatever nutrition advice if I wasn't looking the part, right? That it just shows a lack of incongruency and people pick up on that. So like,
Sure.
um, the example that I want to set, as a trainer and a coach is such that that's also quite motivating and helpful.
Mm,
The people that I'm caring about and I'm coaching are expecting me to show up in a certain way. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that.
mm,
And it looks to me exercising and taking care of my body so I can show up as more and be more for the people around me.
yeah.
Um, and that's one of the things we could try to impart on our clients is that idea
Mm,
that when you take care of your body, you are allowed to, and then you can do a lot more in your life.
mm,
Show up for bigger ways for the people around you and really, you know, really affect some change not only in your life but in those around you because you never know who's watching. you
100%.
you know
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And that actually segues perfectly into the next thing I wanted to get into with you is, tell us a little bit more about how this journey influenced the way you operate at Dirigo Fitness, and then give us a little bit more about how you go about helping people, how you're set up, what your structure looks like, and how you lead those people from initially finding that spark all the way through showing up for themselves so that they can show up for those people and those big moments within their day-to-day life.
yeah, so it didn't take me long to figure out that, like I said, the information that's out there is not hard to come by. uh, People are drowning in information but lacking clarity on how to action it,
Very
right?
true. Yeah.
So one of the things that we do is try to simplify things as much as possible and just make it as actionable as possible.
Mm,
You want to make something difficult to do, make it as complicated as possible.
yeah.
Get it to a place where you don't know where to start or what to do, and I can guarantee you won't take any action.
Right.
So
100%.
simplifying things as much as possible. And simple doesn't always mean easy. In fact, it rarely does,
Mm,
right? Um, it just makes it simple enough to act.
right.
And
Easy
then,
versus easier. Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's just a question about like, okay, now that you know what to do, are you willing to do that? And
Mm,
is the reason that you have to do it enough that you're willing to kind of go against the status quo in your life
mhm.
so that you can affect some change?
Yeah.
Because I mean, people say change is hard, but a lot of people don't understand that it's hard because even if you don't know, even if you don't like how you're feeling, even if you don't like how you're feeling now,
Yeah.
you at least know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Like you at least know what to expect. And
Mm.
there's some comfort there, right?
Right.
But this idea of like, for some people, being a fitter, leaner you, like that's a scary idea for some people, especially if they've never experienced it. They don't know what that looks like. They
Sure.
don't have the experience. So that's why the change that people want to affect can be difficult because you're
Mm.
always working against what seems comfortable,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
even if you don't like where you're at, there is some sense of comfort in that because you know exactly what to expect. Like
Right.
I know that if I am stressed out about my day and I go and eat a pint of ice cream, that um, I'm not going to feel good about myself after I eat the ice cream, right?
Mm.
I'll probably feel like, shameful or remorseful or like bad about myself or whatever.
Yeah.
But on some level, I also know I'm going to feel different.
Right.
I'm not going to be worried about work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more inwardly focused, and that, so I'm getting some relief from that ice cream, right? I know what that life's like.
Right.
Now I'm supposed to be this healthy person. What the hell do I do now? How do I,
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've got these like little habits
In those small
take
little
us,
pockets of our
yeah,
day. Yeah.
that just take us away from the person we want to be. And getting people aware and emotionally mature enough to admit that that's how they operate sometimes is like,
Mm.
it's real work. And yeah, it's scary for people,
Mm.
right? To acknowledge like, yeah, I go home and I eat a pint of ice cream, drink a bottle of wine or
Yeah.
whatever, because that's how I decompress from my day.
Sure.
And you're saying I have to give all that up if I want to be fit? I don't know.
Right.
Right? And maybe they don't say that out loud,
Mm.
but every action that they do is what they would say is self-sabotaging,
Mm.
which means there's some kind of like, what we've learned is that just means there's some kind of inner conflict around what they're saying they want and what they feel they can't achieve,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think that's a real good point to touch on with how you work with your clientele, how you and your team work with your clientele, because any gym can have small group classes or individual
Mhm.
personal training or bigger group classes or their functional fitness or their CrossFit or whatever the case might be. But I think unless you're really hitting it from an all-encompassing point of view, whether it's utilizing other professionals or
Mhm.
having a well-rounded team in place in house, whatever the case might be,
Mhm.
to hit on all of those other areas that are going to be way bigger barriers than actually coming to the gym and working out.
Mhm.
Because yes, that can be hard too, but once you get going on that a little bit, that's a little bit easier, especially like you said, if you're paying for it, right? If you're paying for it, most people will be committed to showing up for that. But
Yes.
but making the well-rounded changes to actually get to where that person wants to be at the end of the day
Mhm.
in those small pockets of the day, just like you touched on, is probably the most crucial part of making a change like that in your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
So having that structure, the way you work with your clients, I think is I think it's huge and sets you, in my opinion, sets you apart from other people who are
Mhm.
simply a gym. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. So because of that, Dirigo Fitness has grown quite a bit. I actually, back when I was there were a lot less team members. And when I was there, when I worked out there, that's how I met you, Brian.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
If people want proof of that, there's a picture of me somewhere on your website still. I
There
looked at it.
is. Yeah.
I looked at it the other day. I'm in there somewhere. People can find it.
Yeah.
DirigoFitness.com. But so you've grown a lot over the years since then, and you've even experienced a little bit more growth. So tell me a little bit more about that and some of the new exciting stuff you have going on, so we can kind of get that out to people so they can see where Dirigo Fitness is at today.
Yeah. So we've actually been super blessed to be doing as well as we have been with everything going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
we actually acquired a ton of space that was in the front of us so that we have just about tripled our square footage, which is
Awesome.
pretty exciting. Our staff has grown exponentially in the last year. And so what's super exciting is we actually have a grand opening Saturday, October 2nd from 10 to 2, just to kind of welcome everybody and see the new space, see how it flows, because we've grown so much. We just want to get some people in the community and show them, like, what we have to offer and, how we can help, or at least show them or point them in the right direction,
Yeah.
So we've got some like fun stuff for kids to do, like a bounce house, food, all that good stuff. But mostly it's an opportunity to just like do some fitness, meet some friends, and have some fun on a Saturday morning.
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you actually have a few like fitness class times lined up between that?
Oh, yes,
10 and
we
2 o'clock?
do. We have classes on the hour at 10, 11, and 12.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic. Well, I was planning on showing up anyways because I want to see more of that new space, and I always love stopping by and saying hi to your team. But I'm gonna come ready to work out too. That sounds
Awesome.
like that sounds like a great idea. So
yes,
really looking forward to that. So now that we know that event is happening on Saturday, October 2nd from 10 to 2, where and how can people find you, both physically and online, social media, website, all that good stuff? How do
so you can find us Dirigo Fitness on all the socials, right? DirigoFitness.com, and then we are located at 240 US Route 1 Falmouth. It's actually, we're located in the Staples Plaza. That's the easiest way for people to find it. You can see us, we're to the right of Staples, and we basically took over the entire left side of the complex, which is pretty exciting, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. And on Saturday, just look for the bounce house, right? That'll be,
yes, look for the bounce house, which is awesome.
go to the Staples Plaza on Route 1 in Falmouth, Maine, and look for the bounce house on Saturday. Bring the kids, work out, have a good time, meet the team at Dirigo Fitness.
Yes,
Wonderful.
For sure. They're always welcome.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for joining me and sharing your personal story, the story of Dirigo Fitness, and how you have been so impactful on the lives of people that you have worked with and are going to work with. Big believer in what you guys do. And I hope everyone comes and checks you out on Saturday. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. Thanks a lot for having me.
Of course. So everybody go and check that out in Falmouth on Saturday, October 2nd from 10 to 2. Come ready to work out, learn more about the team, and we hope to see you all there. I also want to thank you all for downloading and listening to the podcast. You can get all the episodes on your favorite podcast platform. As always, would love it if you found value in this episode, that you would share it with someone else that you know and love and care for that could also find value in it. So be a friend and tell a friend, spread the word so that we can help everybody find the mental, emotional, and physical strength they need to fulfill their true purpose in life. 5-star rate and reviews on Apple Podcast are always welcome as well. Really appreciate you all. And we will see you back here next week for another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast.